Davinci Resolve is an extremely powerful program, and today we're going to talk about Fusion. The timestamps are on the screen and down in the description. If there's a particular place you'd like to go to in the video, definitely just click and jump there. If you like the content, please consider subscribing. That helps me out a lot, and I appreciate that. So let's jump into this video. So let's head over to the Fusion page. We are going to work our way clockwise from the top left. I'm going to talk a little bit about what each thing is. So on the top left, you have your media pool. This is all the media that you have within your project. You have effects, and there are a ton of effects. It's amazing how much you can do in this program that is, for the most part, free. You have all this stuff. It's just crazy. You have clips, which these are the clips that are actually in your timeline. Close that. And you have your nodes. This is like the heart of what Fusion is right here. And if you did not see the color grading course for the color page, I would highly suggest going back and watching that first. The way the color page in the Fusion page works is by nodes. This is a node. There's media that you're going to bring in, and I'm going to push 1. And this media now, if you can see this little dot, is shown on your left source viewer. But if you hit 2, you can see it on your right source viewer. It doesn't look like anything happened, but it's actually showing it. Now I'm turning it on and off. And this is going to get fed back out to your timeline. So on the top right, you have your spline editor. So this is, if you have keyframes and something is moving, you can change it from a very straight line to a curved line for easier in and outs in your movement. You can see your keyframes if you have keyframes on your timeline. Metadata for each clip, and then your inspector, which you're going to be doing a lot of your adjustments within this inspector. And then you have your whole toolbar. The few tools we're going to actually talk about today are the background tool, the text tool, and the merge tool, as well as the transform tool. And all of these can work together to do some pretty amazing things. How do we get started? How do we do anything? So this is our media out. This is essentially what you will see as the final output back to your timeline. I think I'm going to bring in this really cool image of Batman. So let me close that. But there's nothing there, and it's not doing anything. So if I drag this little gray area to the out, so now you can see that this media that is hovering in the node area of Fusion wasn't doing anything. And when you drag it to the output, now you can see it here. And if we go back to the edit page, you can see it on your edit page. Pretty cool, right? If you want to take this, a step further, you could, let's say, add text. So here's a text tool. I'm going to click that. Well, nothing happened. Well, how do I bring the text in? Well, let's see what happens if we just drag it on top of the media in. Now this got weird. I don't know what's going on. So I'm going to undo that. And essentially what you need is a merge tool. So here's a merge. I'm going to just click this. The best way I can think of describing a merge is you have media 1, and media 1 needs to be, in this instance, on top of media 2. Media 2 can be this Batman image. Media 1 is the text. And somehow you need to put the text on top of it. Now, in a layer-based system, that would be really easy. But this isn't a layer-based system. So you need something that merges that text into the other one. So let's put our text into the merge. And then we're going to bring the merge down onto the media 1. It does the same thing. Well, that's because you need the merge in between both the text and the media in 1 and the media out. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete all these connections. We're going to put the merge right here. Instead of left clicking and dragging to here and dropping it, we're going to actually right click it and drag it. We're going to pull it to the center and let go. And now you have some different ways of connecting it. So what we want is the Batman image to be the background of this composition. So I'm going to click background. And well, I can't see it. Well, we have to connect this to the output back to the timeline viewer. Now, I want my text on top of the Batman image. So again, I'm going to right click and drag to the center, drop it, and I want this to be the foreground. So why don't I see any text yet? Well, let's go to the inspector. For now, you're just looking at the merge and the adjustments for the merge. We're not going to change anything. We're going to click the text. Now you can't see anything yet, but if I come into this text box and I type in, let's say Batman, now we can start to see something. Like now it's actually starting to look like something. And if you wanted to just look at a layer all by itself and you didn't want to see anything else, all you have to do is click the layer and push 1 or push 2. So now this text layer is on both of the viewers. So we don't want it on 2. I would rather have the media out on 2 so I can see essentially the final image. Here's Batman, but I want like just like a cooler looking font. So I'm going to come over here, and again, you have so many adjustments that you can change, and I would highly suggest take the time to come into these programs and just mess with stuff. You're not going to break anything. So I'm going to change this font. I'm Batman. That's kind of cool. Why not? All right, so I found this VTKS Distress. So I think this is kind of cool looking. I'm going to make it a bit bigger. You can adjust where it is on the screen, where your center point is, you zooming in and out. It's just, there's so many things on here. This is the area, these 2 little yellow bars, where it is on the timeline on the edit page. So I'm going to come in just a little bit in here, maybe to right there. And I'm going to click this little button down here where it says right on. So now I placed a keyframe, and you can see there's a little icon on there now where I want this to end. So now I'm going to move this back to the beginning, and I'm going to move right on all the way to the left. And what that's going to do is it's going to make all the letters go away. So this is essentially going to be keyframed to, in this amount of time, right on each letter. So now that it's keyframed, if we come into the keyframe area, we can see that there's something going on here. But I'm not actually worried about this. I want to go to the spline tool. So I'm going to close inspector. And I don't see anything right now. There's nothing. If you click text 1, now you can see something, but it's still, I don't know what's going on. So there's a little icon right here, and it says zoom to fit. So we're going to click that, and now you can actually see this is the beginning of the clip, and this is where the right on ends in the clip. So if I move this over, Batman. So now there's no movement, but if there was movement, I could click this, and I could right click it and hit, let's say, smooth. And now it's going to make a nice smooth transition in. So let's close this, and we're going to go back to the edit page. We're going to let this render. So I'm at the beginning, I'm going to hit the space bar. Batman. Now to take it up another notch, let me play this real quick. I'm going to unmute this track, and I thought some epic music would help it a lot. But yeah, this is just a very simple way to kind of get started. So now we're going to go to the second clip. In this clip, what I did was I tracked this laptop. You can see down here in the little icon, and I'm going to show you more in a minute. It's actually a green screen, or there's green on the screen, I should say. Let's check out what's going on here. And you can also see this is a Fusion clip number 1. This is a Fusion clip number 2, which are on the sidebar in the media pool. So I'm going to go into Fusion, and you can see there's actually not a lot I did. This is the original image, media in 1, and then I brought in media 2, and I'm going to disconnect real quick. So that went away. If I right click and drag the gray area onto this area down here, I'm going to let go, and we want it to be corner pin 1. What is corner pin 1? I'll tell you in just a minute. So this is a planar tracker, and then we also have a transform. Remember I mentioned I wanted to talk about transform earlier? So essentially what transform is, you can see on the left side, this image doesn't actually cover the whole entire screen. You can see if you look at the transform that I zoomed it in a little bit. You're taking, whether this is one node or multiple nodes, you're running it into a transform, and you are adjusting that item, and it could be anything. It could be the center point, it could be the pivot, it could be the size, it could be the aspect ratio, the angle. If you need to twist it or turn it, you could flip it vertically or horizontally, and there's even more to it. But essentially I just zoomed in a little bit. I changed the size so that these bars on the top and bottom are gone. So that's a little bit about what transform does. What I'm going to do is, instead of coming over here to effects and looking for something, because there's so many things over here, I'm going to click this. And actually another quick tip, instead of earlier I had clicked off this and I clicked merge, and then this comes down here, and then I put it here, and I move this into here, and it's just okay. It wasn't that bad, but it took several clicks. What you can do, have the node selected that you need merged, right? Click the merge tool, and then it will automatically drop it in there for you. So it's still connected to media out, but we want to disconnect that, and we're gonna have this selected. We're gonna hold down Shift and hit spacebar. So I'm gonna pick a planar tracker. I'm gonna hit add, but it's still not going out yet. So we're gonna select this, the planar tracker, and hit Shift spacebar again, and it's still on the planar, but we're going to delete that. We're going to type in transform. So transform, XF, hit add. And again, it drops it in there for us, which is convenient. And then we're going to drag this to the end, connect it to the yellow, and now we can see the final output. So the first thing we're going to do is go to transform, and we're going to make this larger. So size larger, just enough to cover the top and bottom. I'm happy with that. Don't need to do anything else. Then, because we have media 1 in, we're going to go to the planar tracker. We're going to click it and look at these settings. This is really important. When I'm first tracking this, because I want to drop in that image, we're going to leave pretty much everything the way it is. I'm okay with it, and I've gotten pretty good results. So I'm not going to do anything with that. Now you can see I have a little crossbar right now, or a plus sign. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop 4 points. So I'm going to start over here. And I found that the best way to do the tracking is to get some really good contrast in there. So I'm going to start with the white shirt and get the white, black, and green in this box I'm going to create. So I'm going to drop a point right here. Drop the next one down here, a little bit below the bottom of the screen. Drop one over here and one right here, and then just close it by clicking the first one again. So now I have a box, right? Well, what am I going to do with this box? Well, I need to set a point on my timeline, which I'm already at a particular frame in the video where I can start my tracking. So to do this, I'm going to hit set. And it just so happens to be that I'm on frame 182 of this video clip. So now that I have it set, I can actually start the tracking, which will be this button or this button. This will track to the end, or this will track back to the beginning. This will stop. This will do 1 frame at a time, these two, backwards and forwards. Now, if I ever move this around and I'm like, oh, it's still kind of in the box, but that's not where I used to be. I can't remember the number. Well, the number's still there, and you can also click go, and it will take you right back to that number. So now that we have that set, we're going to hit track to end. I'm going to go back to 182, and I want to track backwards. So I'm going to click this button. Now I have the whole video clip tracked. So the tracking data is there. I don't have to do anything else with it. But because I'm trying to put something over top of that image and I want it to move with the laptop, we are going to change this from track to corner pin. So I'm going to click corner pin. You can see it gives me this little box. So if you hold down control and if you have a center wheel, you can zoom in this way. Or you can set it over here with one of these percentages. I'm going to go in here using the middle mouse click to move around. And I'm going to grab each of these pins or these points, and I'm going to drag them to the corner of the laptop. So now we have that there. Now if we move this around, this should follow, because we have the laptop tracked, where the image is going to sit. So now we're ready to bring in the second image. So I want to drag this down again, drop it on top with the right click, and we want it to be connected to the corner pin. So once I click that, now we can see the image. Congratulations. If you look real closely, you can see green from the screen. So now we can actually go in here and fine tune where that pin is. Now I'm going to get real close. Drag this just to where the green goes away. Drag this up here. It doesn't have to be perfect because you have that black area of the screen, but we do want to try to get it as best as possible. I am pretty happy with that. Let's see what it looks like. We're going to go back to the edit page and we're going to let this render. If you don't see this red or blue line above your clips, what you can do is you can right click it and go up to render cache fusion output, turn that to on. Once you do that, then you come up to your playback and change your render cache to smart, and it will automatically run the renders when you need it to. So now let's see what this actually looked like. Awesome. And you can see it actually looks like the video clip was in the laptop. Awesome, right? And to be honest with you, just in my opinion, I don't really think that this was too difficult. It took me a while to learn how to do this, but not too bad. I don't know if you noticed this, but there's some really bad green spill right here. So what I did to correct that, I took this clip over into the color page. You can see there's a power window here. Now, if you didn't see my color grading video, I would highly suggest going back and watching that first. But essentially what I did is I took a qualifier. Let me turn this off real quick. You can see the green. I click and drag to qualify this greenish area. And then I made a power window. I put it around the laptop because I didn't want it to affect anything else in the image. I got my power window, tracked it, and then I went in here to saturation versus saturation in the curves. And I essentially got rid of all of that color there. And if I actually put this back to 0, you can see the color come back. We went from this to this. Awesome, right? All right, so let's move on to the next one. So now we're going to do some green screen. We have this simple image in the background and then this woman on her cell phone talking. So I'm going to play it real quick. So let's jump into the Fusion page. This looks a little more complex than the other one, but the idea is still the same. You have a piece of media. It has to go through something to make it to the output of the Fusion page to go back into the timeline. So let me kind of walk through and explain what I did here. So we have media 2. If I push 1, we can see it on this side, and you can see that it actually doesn't even fill in the whole entire screen. That's not as important since she's going to get keyed out. We have what's called the delta keyer. This is the actual keyer that we're going to get rid of the green with. We have a crop, which I'm going to show you this really cool shortcut. You have your transform, which I used to readjust her size and position in the final frame. I did a little bit of color correction, which I'll get to that in a minute. And then I did the merge between the background and then her in the foreground to finally bring it out to the edit page. So now the background, you'll see media 1. Let me hit 1 real quick. I just have a stock image of a room. We have transform. Again, you can see the sides are not covering up the entire image because this is probably closer to a 3x4 image since it's a picture than it is 16:9 aspect ratio for video. And then we have a Gaussian blur. There is just a very, very slight blur. And that's just to kind of give some separation between the subject or the talent in the background, hopefully to make it look a little more realistic. So let's break this down on how I did each one. We're going to delete all these. And I'm going to leave the background because it's pretty straightforward. I just changed the size and then I added a little bit of blur. So when I brought it into the merge, I made sure that this was the background because the talent will be the foreground. Now, the first thing we're going to do is actually key out her green screen. So I'm going to click her and do Shift Spacebar again. And we're going to type in keyer. And we want to pick the delta keyer. So hit add, and that automatically brings in the connection to that. So let's actually view what she looks like. And I guess for now, just so we can actually see her on the background, I'm going to drag this over to the merge and drop it. And we want her again to be the foreground. On the delta keyer, now we have all these settings. Well, the first thing we want to do is we need to pick the green that's actually going to be keyed out. So if you click this gray box right here, this allows you to set a color or to pick a color on the screen. So I'm going to hit pick a color, and I want to pick something pretty close to her body. So I'll pick that color right there. We're going to hit OK. So now you can see the key has started. You know, just off the bat, it's not too bad of a key. There's not too much spill, and it's handling it pretty well. But we're going to go through a couple of the settings to kind of fine tune this key. The first thing you might notice is that there's still black bars on the side, and we want to get rid of that. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a crop. So we're going to go in here and hit crop. And again, the nice thing about this is if you have the previous node selected, it will automatically connect and drop in the node you're trying to add. We're going to use crop to get rid of these black edges. And this is really cool. You could go in here and do an offset, and it kind of moves her around and gets rid of part of it. You could turn the size for X and Y down, which you can see. It's essentially moving from the right and cutting to the left. But what I found to be really cool, but if you go to auto crop, and all you have to do is click auto crop. Check this out. So that got rid of the majority of the crop we needed it to cut away. So let's go back to crop and just adjust this a little bit more. There we go. All right, so just a little fine tuning, and now we have the sides cropped off. I can't actually move her with what I currently have on here. So I'm going to add a transform to actually move the talent to where I want her on the screen. I have crop selected. I'm going to hit shift spacebar, and I'm going to type in transform. I'm going to hit add. Now we can use this transform to actually move her around on the screen itself. Right now we're seeing the final result. If we took this key here and put it into the left side, this is what we're seeing, right? If we change this to matte, this is what is actually being keyed right now. And we can see the goal is to have the outside, which is green, completely black, and the inside completely white. So I'm going to change it from key to matte. And now we have all these settings. And you can go through all of these settings on each of these tabs and really fine tune the key that you have going on here. So I'm just going to go through and adjust these settings and do a quick time lapse so you can see kind of what I do. So I'm pretty happy with that, but now I want to come back and actually see what I did. So I adjusted the threshold, I added just a teeny tiny bit of blur, and I was cleaning up the foreground and background. And what I'm noticing is that I still have just a little bit of a gray fringe around her shirt, and I want to try to get rid of that. At this point, I think the last thing I'm going to do is just a little adjustment to her face because she's a little more on the yellow side, and I want to try to match her skin tone with the background of the image. So I'm going to hit transform, shift space. I'm going to type in color, and I want to get the color corrector. So I'm going to add that. And now on this page, I'm going to bring the midtones just a little bit to the warmer side. Turn this on and off. And you see just a little bit of warmth was added to her. I am pretty happy with that. So if we go back to the edit page, so now let's play that back. And, you know, again, you can always go in there and finesse the settings a little bit more for the key and really turn it into what you want it to become.